Welcome to Unity Code with Shannon. I am a co-host or friend today, and we're going to be answering a really important question that we are all wanting to know the perspective from Shannon. And the question is, what is DNA?
So, what is DNA? The way that I look at DNA is it is the software system of our human vessel. DNA is a complex, time capsule, meaning it stores all our information currently of our beliefs, our emotions, the chemicals that the body makes. But the DNA also stores more expansive information of knowing you at the purest source that you can be and express.
So many of us have always thought of DNA as genetic coding, not so much of in all of the other aspects that you were just sharing with us, where it stores feelings or ancestral things. Like, tell us why that hasn't been revealed to us before this conversation, because there's a lot of people not discussing those other aspects of DNA.
I think through various energy medicines and the people, communities, tribal ancestry, they've tapped into DNA as an intelligence through resonance and frequency. But again, I don't think in detail it was mastered as to what that resonance and frequency was actually holding in the information and how it's being held within the physical vessel. And so I think it would be a difficult conversation because it's something so unseen for most people, where even though it's what's running, our every action, our every thought, our every emotion, it's one of those things that as a human is born, we're entrained to use that particular software system inverted. And so instead, we're very intellectualized as to bringing in information from outside of ourselves of what we think our experience is. And so it would be complex, I believe, for people to formulate what actually is a software system within the physical vessel and equating it to DNA, the file system.
So let's talk a little bit further on that. So if DNA is the software system or is it the filing system? Like elaborate a little bit more on explaining that whole
It's
analogy.
both. It is the software system and the file system. DNA is holding whatever information you are intellectualizing, identifying in whatever you're observing. The DNA already has an idea of what you're bringing in as far as information, and we call that programming. But at the same time, it's a complex system. I truly believe it's doing both, right? It's a very multi-dimensional technology that the body is running, and at the same time, it is quite simple as to how it's storing and allowing the body to hold all these various elements of information.
And you mentioned briefly earlier about coding it. Now, is there a way to like recode our DNA or encode it with new programs and beliefs? Or, now that we inherited it or it's within our cellular structure, how then do we work with it to like maybe create something different in our life?
Yeah, so ways that we can think about how we're using DNA. So humans on the inverted side are using the ego, mind, and the intellect to observe the information that they're identifying in. And that information that they're taking in, they are programming the physical vessel that way. So that's coming from an outside source of information, but the human is actually chasing that information from frequency and resonance that's already programmed in them. So that would be the inverted way that DNA is being used. But there is a completely different way, and it's the way that you master the physical vessel within the our body. There's an intelligence, there's an awareness, there's living elements that actually know beliefs, they know information in its purity. And so the DNA has that in its operating system. It has both the matrix, let's just say limited information stored there, and it also has the most purest expression or information that someone is capable of holding in a level of source. And so, how would someone learn to tap in to unify and to actually use the software system in that type of evolutionary intelligent information is through the physical body's awareness. It's teaching the body how to understand information through resonance and frequency. So the human vessel itself, right? We are frequency beings, we're electrical beings. And within this complex system of our physical anatomy, it communicates through frequency and resonance, which is actually very detailed information from the macro and the micro level of how it's being concepted, how it's being held within the physical vessel. And so, how would one tap into using this whole new awareness? Well, it takes time. It takes time mastering where one's beliefs are, right? In how they're accumulating these beliefs and what they're agreeing to in the beliefs. That's part of the process, meaning if someone's having all types of limited beliefs, emotions, just really kind of having a hard time in life generating what they truly do want to feel or bringing a whole coherent timeline of what they're experiencing to their development and growth, well, that's part of the process. It's going in and learning how to co-create your body as a neurofeedback system through the DNA deciphering what truly is yours and what is not.
So, what is one thing that we can do right now um, to sort of like, is it like deep breathing? How do we like sort of help our DNA, our body sort of go within that one source of, instead of going to the programs through the matrix, but on the other side, what's one thing that we could do to tap into that?
hmm So first thing that comes to mind is self-regulation. It's catching yourself in your belief systems, right? If the body is in any chemical emotion, meaning if the body's in cortisol, if the body is in a place where the nervous system is, let's say, distracted, the nervous system is outputting, various chemicals that feel uncomfortable or anxiety or frequencies that the body feels resistant and stagnant, that's where we need to start taking a look at the information that's being stored within the body itself. And so through our physical vessel, we know what's out of alignment. Each and every one of us intuitively know where we're out of alignment, meaning from a chemical standpoint, right? When someone's in anxiety, they know they're in anxiety. And this is one of the first steps is catching yourself when you're in these patterns and how long have these cycles been going on and where did they start, right? And just knowing that it's a pattern, right? It's something that your body is kind of chasing to be in this similar resonance. Right there, you can start catching yourself with what is not true to your body. Your body already knows you're whole. The physical vessel already is an intelligent, pure blueprint. And what does that mean? Free of chemical. The body knows how to be in a 0 point frequency, meaning neutrality. What is something that I could equate to that would be flow state, right? Each and every one of us at one point in time or another have been in a flow where everything is quiet. The central nervous system is quiet, even if it's just for seconds. And that is what's true to what the vessel is capable of. That's where it wants to be, right? It's not creating any chemical misalignments or creating any feedback of a loop that feels dysregulated. And so when we can start just attuning to our awareness, catching the repetitive thoughts, not making a big deal about it, but just catching where we're creating these hard patterns, right? These same expressions that keep the body in distraction, keep the body going to these lower fields that will create the chemical feedback. Well, right there, your body is trying to do the process to realign you. Again, it knows what it is in its purity, like I expressed in the flow state, but most of us ignore that, right? When we're in the chemical, we ignore it or we stuff it down with something, whether it be our emotions or we stuff it down with something addiction wise, coffee or alcohol or whatever it may be. You know, when there's a disruption and there's these patterns that we don't want to take a look at, we're usually layering it with something else. And so, if we can start catching what we are creating with habits and patterns on a vibrational resonance level, that's the first clue to starting to wake up the vessel in itself.
So first is to identify the habit or the pattern, and then to go to like a 0 point or a state of flow of neutrality so you could stop all of the misalignment. Is that what I'm hearing?
So, first would be really just catching where the mind is going, right? Where's the ego going? Where's the mind going? Where's the intellect going? If your body's in a frequency where it's feeling dysregulated, right? Meaning any type of resonance where you feel uncomfortable, the first part is just catching it, right? It's just catching it and knowing that, that is being created outside of yourself, right? As you catch that awareness, you know, it's just good to isolate the experience, knowing that you don't have to take it personally, but instead, going to the next step would be to get out of that pattern by, yes, you can bring in a very neutral state energetically. Not many people are trained to do that right away. So just catching the pattern first really is step one and two. And from there, if you want to go a whole nother step is if you're in some kind of emotional chemical disruption, go do something else.
Mm.
Right? Go do something to just break it up, right? Or if you're taking a step back, breathing would be good, right? Or, feeling into a higher unified field if you have that potential in you to do so. But the number one thing again is just in the beginning of understanding your DNA, which is holding all the information, right, that we have processed up to this very date in time, is catching where these patterns and these loops are from this very sophisticated software system. Right now, it's going to be you're catching things from completely outside of you anytime you're getting triggered.
So now that we are catching it, and I'm inviting all of you listening or viewing this on YouTube to try this, to just catch it, do the very first step, and let us know in the comments below how that is affecting you and what kind of impact that you are experiencing by just being aware of these habits and these patterns that have formed. Okay, so now that we've done that, is that going to like recode our DNA after we continually like pause, identify, oh wait, that's a habit or that's a pattern that I don't want? Is it going to eventually recode the DNA so that it doesn't happen again, like almost like preventing it from reoccurring?
It's part of the process. It is breaking up the resonance in the energetic information. And so that is a start to it. As far as recoding, yes, it could recode, but really is when you want to go in and recode that pattern is taking a step further and seeing what are you agreeing to that you're allowing your body to keep going to this vibrational resonance, right? And so we can step in a little further and, test the waters to see what the cycle of identification is with that pattern, that belief that's creating that same dysregulation in frequency.
Now, you might have already answered this question along the way, but the other question that was asked and that we wanted to know your point of view of is why is DNA important?
DNA is what it takes to master, our species. DNA is what the fabric that's holding all the information in the collective, but on an individual basis, your DNA is holding every memory, every space-time continuum you've ever processed in this vehicle, right? This vehicle is a vessel, but the DNA is holding all the information of an algorithm that didn't just start here. It's holding the information of this personal lifetime. It's holding the information of the bloodline, and it also holds information of the reincarnation process too. And so, why is that important? Well, just understanding that, a lot of what we're creating and a lot of the submagnetics that this body is holding and all this information is a lot of what is being injected into the collective consciousness, where there is a same algorithm of limitation and beliefs that are playing out in all these cycles. And so, again, why is it important? Because when you can master DNA and you can understand the information that it's always communicating to us, when you can master what frequency and resonance is in its macro and its micro, it could completely shift the whole matrix paradigm. And so, why is DNA important? Well, I've dedicated my life to decoding it and mastering it, but it is an information highway that you can become where you exit polarity and duality of all belief systems. You exit the entrainment of the ego mind ruling the roost of the physical vessel, and it catapults you into an up level of higher dimensional intelligence that was always within you. That's still a part of the DNA. But when you can get to this place where you're no longer fragmented by the old algorithms of all the same limited beliefs because they got encoded from polarity and duality of this cycle of the matrix, like I talked about, from limited beliefs to bloodline to reincarnation. When we can get in and really master that wheel, instead, what we do is we open up a unified vortex within the body where it no longer agrees to what that old information is. And that is highly important. There's a lot of things going on with what DNA is, but just, being interested in it, having this experience with what actually is coding your every creation is something I think that we should all tap into. And I think we will at some point in time.
Definitely. And you are the pioneer to help us tap into this DNA knowledge. And thank you so much, Shannon, for answering our questions on what is DNA and why is it important. And thank you to all of you tuning in to this channel. We appreciate you watching and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.
Bye. Thank you.